So picture this. It's a Friday evening. You check your bank account like you always do on payday, and both deposits are sitting right there. Yours, your partner's, side by side. And for a second, you just smile because the number looks good, like actually good. You've got rent covered, car notes fine, a few subscriptions, yeah, but nothing crazy. And you've got enough left over to maybe grab dinner out this weekend without feeling guilty about it. And you think to yourself, okay, we're doing all right. Two incomes, two salaries. We're good. And you know what? That feeling makes complete sense because two incomes really do feel like an upgrade. Like you went from a one engine plane to two engines. More power, more lift, more cushion if something goes wrong. But here's the thing, and I say this with full love and zero judgment, that feeling of we're good and actually being financially secure, those are two very different things. And for a lot of households, bringing in two solid incomes right now, the gap between those two things is way bigger than it looks. Because the money is coming in, that part is real. But the question nobody's really asking is what? Where's it going? And more importantly, what happens if one of those engines cuts out? That's the pattern I want to talk about today because it's quiet. It builds slowly. And by the time most people notice it, the whole lifestyle is already locked in around both paychecks. And there's no easy way to walk it back. My name is Nikki, and welcome to Nikki Invests, where we talk about financial psychology, wealth building habits, and how to make smarter decisions with the money you already have. If that sounds like your kind of thing, hit subscribe and come back every week. Now let's get into this. Okay, so let's build a simple picture of what's actually happening here because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Imagine your household finances like a platform, a flat surface that everything sits on top of: your rent or mortgage, your car, your groceries, your childcare, your subscriptions, your lifestyle, everything that makes your normal life run. Now, when you only have one income, that platform is narrow. It has to be. There's only so much money coming in, so the stuff on top has to fit. You're careful. You prioritize. You keep things lean because you have to. But when a second income comes in, the platform expands. And that feels amazing at first. You've got more room. You can breathe. You can add things. And so you do. Because why wouldn't you? You can afford it now. The problem is that everything you add to that platform becomes part of the structure. The rent goes up because now you can afford a nicer place. The car payment goes up. The trips, the dinners, the lifestyle, it all adjusts upward. And slowly, quietly, without any single dramatic decision, you've built a life that needs that whole wide platform to hold together. Both incomes aren't just contributing anymore, they're both load bearing, and that's where the trap lives. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. And I want to use this guy, Eric, as our example because why not? Meet Eric. He's 31. He lives in Atlanta, works as a project coordinator for a mid-sized logistics company. Solid job, steady pay, nothing flashy, but he's respected at work and he's good at what he does. He brings home about $52,000 a year after taxes. His partner, Danielle, is a dental hygienist. She makes about $48,000 a year, so together, their household income is right around $100,000, which in Atlanta, not Manhattan, not San Francisco, puts them in a genuinely comfortable spot. They're not rich, but they're not stressed either, or at least they don't feel stressed. Eric is responsible. He pays his bills on time. He's got a little in savings. He thinks about retirement, even if he doesn't act on it as often as he'd like. He and Danielle talk about money, not all the time, but enough. They've got a rough idea of where things stand. His blind spot? Eric genuinely believes that two incomes equals financial security. He's never really questioned that assumption, because from where he's sitting, it looks true. The math adds up every month, so why would he dig deeper? That right there, that quiet assumption, is where this whole thing starts. So let's walk through Eric's normal life. because nothing he's doing looks irresponsible. That's the whole point. When Eric and Danielle started combining finances, they were renting a one bedroom for $1,200 a month. Tight but manageable on one income if they had to. Then they got comfortable and they upgraded to a two-bedroom in a nicer part of the city. $2,100 a month. Reasonable for two incomes. A stretch for one. Eric's old car was paid off, but when Danielle got a raise, they decided it was finally time to upgrade. He got a 2022 Nissan Altima. $487 a month? Nothing wild. Just a normal car note for someone making what he makes. They added Danielle to his insurance plan, which made sense, and their combined insurance jumped to $340 a month. They've got a gym membership, a couple of streaming services, a meal kit subscription they use maybe twice a week. That's another $180 or so. None of it feels like a lot on its own. They went to Cancun last year, spent about $3,800 total. Used a little savings, put some on the card, paid it off over 3 months. Fine. Childcare isn't in the picture yet, but they're talking about starting a family in the next couple of years. And when that comes up, Eric usually says, "We'll figure it out when it happens," which is a very normal, very human thing to say, and also a pretty expensive plan. Now, here's where I want you to pay close attention, because individually, and every single one of those decisions is reasonable. Nothing Eric and Danielle have done is reckless. There's no gambling, no designer bags, no bottle service. Just a normal life for two people making decent money in a mid-sized American city. But when you add it all up, rent, car note, insurance, subscriptions, food, utilities, gas, their fixed monthly expenses are sitting at roughly $5,600 a month. Their combined take-home is about $8,000, so they've got around $2,400 left over each month for savings, eating out, fun, and anything unexpected. That sounds okay, right? And it is. Until you ask one question. What happens if Danielle's income disappears? Now Eric's take-home is $4,333 a month, and his fixed expenses are $5,400. He's $1,067 in the hole every single month before he buys a single meal. That's not a crisis because of bad decisions. That's a crisis because the lifestyle was designed for two engines, and nobody stress tested it with one. Now let's zoom in on how Eric got here. Because it didn't happen all at once. It happened in tiny moves. Little micro decisions that each made complete sense in the moment but added up to something much bigger than any one choice. It starts with the mental shift that happens when a second income arrives. The internal calculator resets. What used to feel expensive now feels fine. What used to require saving up now just gets handled. And because both people are working, spending feels earned. We worked hard. We deserve this. And yeah, you do. That's not the problem. The problem is the difference between automation and autopilot. Automation is intentional. You decide every month. And $400 goes to savings before we touch anything else. Every month, $200 goes to an emergency fund. Every month, we look at what we spent and decide if it still makes sense. That's automation. Deliberate. Designed. You set it up on purpose. Autopilot is when the money just moves. It comes in, it goes out, the bills get paid, the lifestyle keeps running, and at the end of the month, there's something left over. Sometimes more, sometimes less, and you call that savings. That's autopilot. It feels like it's working because nothing's broken. But you're not steering. You're just moving. Eric is on autopilot. Not because he's lazy, not because he doesn't care, but because nothing has gone wrong yet, so there's been no reason to take the wheel. And here's the sneaky thing about autopilot, Ike. It doesn't just maintain the lifestyle. It slowly expands it. Because when you've got two incomes and some breathing room, The default answer to most money questions becomes, yeah, we can do that. Upgrade the apartment? Yeah, we can do that. New car? Yeah, makes sense. Nice trip? We deserve it. New furniture? We've been needing that. Each individual yes is reasonable, but every yes is also a new fixed cost, a new monthly obligation, another weight on the platform, and the platform keeps getting wider and heavier and more dependent on both incomes to hold its shape. What Eric has never done, and this is key, is sit down and build a one income version of his budget. He's never asked, if Danielle's paycheck stopped tomorrow, what does our life look like? How long could we survive? What would we have to cut? He's never stress tested the system because the system has never been stressed. And saving for Eric is what's left over, not what comes first, which means in months where things are tight, an unexpected car repair, a medical bill, a credit card that got away from them, saving just doesn't happen. It gets pushed to next month, and next month becomes the month after that, and slowly, the buffer that was supposed to grow doesn't. Okay, let's fast forward. 5 years from now, Eric is 36. Things have changed, but they've also stayed the same in a way that actually makes everything harder. He got promoted, making about $61,000 now. Danielle moved to a different practice. She's up to $55,000, so their household income has grown to $116,000. Nice, that's real progress. But the lifestyle grew with it. They bought a house, $2,800 a month with taxes and insurance. They needed 2 cars now for the commute situation, so they've got 2 car payments totaling $830. They had their first kid. Daycare is $1,450 a month. All the little subscriptions became a little more: streaming, cloud storage, Amazon Prime, a family cell plan. They eat out a little less, but spend more on groceries. Total fixed expenses? Close to $7,600 a month. Take home together is now around $9,500. So the gap between income and expenses looks similar to 5 years ago. But here's what's different. The obligations are bigger. The house is a 30-year commitment. The car notes are multi-year contracts. The daycare is essential as long as they're both working. Every piece of the lifestyle is load-bearing. If Danielle stops working, for any reason, a health issue, a layoff, wanting to be home for a year with a kid, burnout, anything, Eric is immediately short by nearly $3,000 a month. Not $1,000 like before, $3,000 a month before they've adjusted a single thing. And what's in their savings? Maybe 4 months of expenses if they're lucky. Probably less. Because the saving what's left over strategy doesn't compound fast enough when the expenses keep expanding. Eric isn't broke. He's not drowning. But he is trapped. Every major life decision, whether to take a risk at work, whether Danielle can step back, whether they could survive a layoff, whether Eric could take a lower paying job that he'd actually love, every one of those questions runs into the same wall. The lifestyle can't bend. There's no give in the system. That's what 2 incomes quietly builds when there's no intentional design behind it. Not wealth, not freedom, a bigger, just more expensive version of the same paycheck to paycheck cycle, just at a higher income level. And this is where it gets really interesting, because if you told Eric all of this, he wouldn't be shocked by the math. He'd probably nod and say, yeah, we really do need to get more disciplined. But he'd still feel in his gut like 2 incomes equals security. And that feeling is really hard to shake. Why? Because it's not irrational. 2 incomes genuinely do provide a buffer in a lot of situations. If Eric's car breaks down, they can handle it. If there's a surprise medical bill, they figure it out. In the moment-to-moment reality of life, 2 incomes is better than 1. Full stop. The problem is that over time, the lifestyle inflates to absorb all of that buffer. And the safety that 2 incomes use to provide slowly gets converted into a higher standard of living. which then requires two incomes to maintain. The buffer doesn't grow, it gets spent, and it gets spent on things that feel like normal life, not things that feel like luxuries, which makes it almost invisible. There's also a social pressure piece here that's really real. When Eric and Danielle got the nicer apartment, part of that was because they could finally afford it, sure, but part of it was because it felt like the next step. Like that's what you do when you're doing well. You upgrade, you level up. And there's nothing wrong with that impulse. It's human. We compare, we want to feel like we're progressing. But progress in lifestyle and progress in financial security are not the same thing. And you can be moving up and becoming more financially fragile at the exact same time. And most people don't realize that's what's happening because the vibe feels like winning. Loss aversion plays a huge role too. Once Eric and Danielle are living in that nicer place, driving those cars, taking those trips, cutting any of it feels like going backward, like losing something, even if keeping it is actually the riskier move. The psychology of not wanting to lose what you have is way more powerful than the logic of protecting your future. And that's true for almost everyone. Now, I want to be really clear about what this video is not saying, because there's an easy misread here that I want to address directly. This is not about whether both partners should work. That is not the conversation. On whether both people in a household work is a personal, financial, and often logistical decision that has nothing to do with the point I'm making. This is also not about earning less. More income is always a tool. The question is how the tool is being used. And this is not about blaming relationships or saying that combining finances is a problem. None of that. The real issue, the only issue, is dependency without design. It's building a lifestyle around two incomes without ever asking what happens if the math changes. It's letting fixed costs rise to meet combined income without any intentional ceiling. It's treating savings as optional and income as the safety net. That's the trap. It's not about love. It's not about ambition. It's about whether the system you're building is resilient or just comfortable. So let's reframe this. Because I don't want you to walk away from this video thinking that two incomes is a problem. It's not. Two incomes is a massive advantage. The question is whether you're using that advantage to build something or whether you're just living nicer. Here's the shift I want you to make. Stop thinking about income as your safety net. Income is a tool, a really powerful tool. But a safety net is something that holds you when the tool isn't working. And income cannot be both things at once. Your real safety net is your buffer, your savings, your emergency fund, your low fixed costs, your flexibility. That's what catches you when something goes wrong. Not the paycheck, because the paycheck can disappear. So instead of asking, how much are we making together, start asking, how much of this lifestyle could one income support? Instead of asking, can we afford this? Start asking, would we still be okay if this were only on one income? That's the question that changes things. Two incomes should be building margin, not consuming it. The second income should be accelerating your savings, your investments, your buffer, not just raising the floor on what your normal life costs. If every raise and every additional income stream is immediately absorbed into a bigger lifestyle, you're running faster on a treadmill that never actually moves you forward. Eric could still turn this around. And it doesn't require dramatic sacrifice. It just requires design, intentional, calm, clear design. So let's talk about what that actually looks like. It's practical steps, real things you can do. The first thing, and this one is everything, is to build a one-income version of your budget. Sit down and actually do the math. If the lower of the two incomes in your household disappeared tomorrow, what would your monthly financial picture look like? What can stay? What has to go? What's the gap? You don't have to act on it immediately. Just know the number, because right now most people don't. And not knowing is how you end up surprised. Second, set a fixed cost ceiling and protect it. Before you upgrade anything, apartment, car, subscriptions, whatever, Ask whether this new cost is compatible with your one income survival budget. If the upgrade only works with both incomes, think very carefully before you lock it in. Fixed costs are the hardest thing to undo. Lifestyle can always grow later. Once it's locked in, it's really hard to shrink. Third, automate savings before the money has a chance to become spending, not what's left over. A real, scheduled, non negotiable transfer that happens on payday, even if it's $200 a month to start. The amount matters less than the habit, because the habit becomes the foundation. Fourth, build a dedicated buffer fund, separate from your regular emergency fund. I call this your resilience buffer. This is specifically for income disruption, layoffs, medical leave, career changes, anything that affects income for more than a month. The goal is at least 3 to 6 months of your essential one income expenses. It's not a fun goal, but it's the goal that actually buys you freedom. Fifth, start tracking dependency, not just spending. Dependency is how much of your lifestyle requires both incomes to function. Most budgeting apps don't measure this. You have to do it yourself. Once a quarter, run the one income scenario. Watch how the number changes over time. If your dependency is increasing, you know you need to pump the brakes on lifestyle growth. If it's decreasing, you know the system is working. And finally, stress test before you commit. Before any major financial decision, moving, buying, upgrading, having a child, run the numbers through the one income scenario first, not to scare yourself, just to make sure the decision is survivable. Because most financial stress doesn't come from bad decisions. It comes from decisions that were made at full capacity with no room for error. Look, I think about Eric a lot when I talk about this topic. Because he's doing everything right on the surface. He's working hard. He's responsible. He loves his family. He's not reckless with money. And yet, without even trying, without any single bad decision, he's built a life that is quietly fragile underneath. That can't absorb a real shock. That doesn't have the flexibility to let either person make a big change without the whole thing feeling at risk. And the frustrating part is that more income didn't fix it. Every raise just became a bigger lifestyle. Every upgrade felt earned. And none of it looked like a problem until you zoomed out and asked the right question. Two incomes is a real opportunity, a genuine advantage. But only if you're using it to build something that can stand on its own, not just to build a bigger version of living paycheck to paycheck. So here's where I want to leave you tonight. Look at your own life right now. The bills, the fixed costs, the lifestyle you've built. And ask yourself honestly, are you using two incomes to build real freedom? Or are you quietly building a life that can't survive without both? Because there's still time to design it differently. And that starts with just knowing where you actually stand. If this video made you think about your own situation differently, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below. I read all of them. And if you want more content about how to actually build financial resilience, not just earn more, but build smarter, subscribe and come back every week. I'm Nikki, and I'll see you in the next one.